G starts here.
With all the latest from around the world and here at home now, it's the ITV Lunchtime News.
The budget backlash. Even the Chancellor admits taxes are going up as a leading expert warns we could all be in for a rude awakening over the financial challenges and choices ahead. The warning comes despite Jeremy Hunt's optimism today that things will eventually get better.
Overall, the taxes that we all pay are going up, but we're starting to bring them down, and we would like to go further.
He also responded to calls that his cabinet colleague Michelle Donnellan should resign after taxpayers paid damages over her falsely accusing an academic of being a Hamas supporter. Also this lunchtime. Aristocrat Constance Martin on trial over the death of her baby denies harming the newborn. Guilty over a shooting on a film set, the weapons expert who handed Alec Baldwin a loaded gun. And you are what you eat. The French research that says junk food makes us less attractive.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. How was it for you? 24 hours on from the budget, and even the Chancellor admitted today that overall the taxes we pay are going up. Despite the cut in national insurance Jeremy Hunt announced yesterday, some people are paying more because income tax thresholds are frozen. But while the number crunching for individuals and the UK economy continues, a leading expert has accused both the Conservatives and Labour of a conspiracy of silence over what will happen to public finances after the election. Paul Johnson from the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies say they and we could be in for a rude awakening regarding the financial challenges and choices the country faces. Here's our political reporter Jasmine Cameron-Chilleshi.
With finances across the country stretched, the Chancellor hopes his tax cuts will provide some relief. But for these pensioners in the safe Tory seat of Altrincham and Sale West, money is still tight.
It doesn't do anything for pensioners because although there's this increase in April, the NI is nothing to pensioners, is it? Because it doesn't affect them at all.
When inflation happens and increases are rife, people get pay awards, or they can change their job and get a better job and earn more. On a pension, you're on a fixed income.
Because of the economy is in such a state, we've gone through COVID, which was no government's fault, and the money that was shedded out for everybody to try and get out of the troubles they were all in has drained the coffers. And I honestly don't think by putting taxes is going to answer the problem.
Pensioners are among the biggest losers following yesterday's tax cuts. According to analysis of all tax and benefit changes announced this Parliament, typical households will gain on average £420 a year. The poorest fifth will gain £840, while the richest fifth will lose on average £1,500. Younger households under 45 will gain £590, compared to an average £770 loss for those aged 66 and over. Economists warn that despite the individual tax cuts, the tax burden is still at a 70-year high, with millions dragged into higher tax thresholds.
Overall, the taxes that we all pay are going up, but we're starting to bring them down, and we would like to go further, and we've shown, I think, now in two fiscal events that we can do that, and we would like to continue to do more of the same.
Labour say the budget has offered the public very little.
In the end, the overall story of the budget was, as ever, government give with one hand and take much more with the other, and people have seen 14 years of this. They're not going to be taken in by this con trick.
Experts argue that all parties will have to confront the legacy of high taxes and low economic growth.
There's some really tough choices facing us after the election. Implicit in what the Chancellor said yesterday are big cuts in public spending, particularly on investment, but also on a whole range of other services. And there's some tax rises that have come after the election. Now, neither party is talking about that. We don't know how Labour would respond to that. Would they really oversee cuts in public spending, or would they increase taxes? In a sense, there's a conspiracy of silence between the two major parties.
Ministers say we've reached a turning point, but with the economy set to be a key election issue, the big question is whether voters will be convinced. Jasmine Cameron-Chaleshi, ITV News, Westminster.
So will they? Our political correspondent Harry Horton joins me now live from Altrincham. What's the feeling, the feedback overall? Was this an election-winning budget?
I don't think so from the voters that we've spoken to so far, at least not yet. This constituency, Altrincham and Sale West, has elected a Conservative MP at every election since it was created in 1997. We've spoken to lots of Tory voters today, all of them really concerned about the state of the country, and many of them telling us that they're not prepared to back the Conservative Party at the next election. They were really concerned about the state of public services, in particular the NHS. I have to say some of them didn't rule out voting for Labour at the next election, but none of them said they were convinced by Labour's plans so far.
Harry, to the other big political story now, if we can turn our attention to that. And the Labour leader is the latest to criticise the government for using taxpayers' money to compensate for a minister's mistake after the Science Secretary, Michelle Donnellan, falsely accused an academic of supporting Hamas. She spoke to Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hunt, how did he respond to calls for her to resign?
Yes, spoke to the Chancellor this morning. He's defended her, as has Number 10 today. This is all over a £15,000 payment made to an academic that the Science Secretary, Michelle Donnellan, falsely accused of supporting Hamas. That academic had launched legal action against the government. Now, the government argues that in paying this money, it's actually reduced legal costs for the government in the long term. Here's what the Chancellor had to say to me earlier.
Well, her legal case was supported by the government, as is customary when government ministers say or do things discharging their duties. This was a payment that was made without any admission of liability, and it was made to stop taxpayers getting involved in a protracted legal dispute.
Well, Labour and the Liberal Democrats have both said that Michelle Donnellan should foot this bill herself. The Prime Minister and other ministers so far are defending her.
Harry Horton, thank you. The mother on trial over the death of her newborn baby, Constance Martin, has denied harming her daughter. Martin and her partner are in court over the baby's death when they were on the run. Sejal Karia is at the Old Bailey. Sejal, take us through the evidence heard so far today.
Yes, after more than 5.5 weeks of sitting in the dock next to her partner, Mark Gordon, the jury in their trial heard for the first time from Constance Martin as she began telling them her version of events as to how the couple's baby, Victoria, had died. Sitting, wearing a white shirt and dark trousers, she walked the few steps from the dock to the witness box, sat down as she was asked, "Did you do anything to harm baby Victoria?" "Absolutely not," she replied. "Did you do anything cruel to baby Victoria?" "No, I did nothing but show her love." She said, "I gave her the best any mother would," adding she and Mr. Gordon felt shock, disbelief and intense grief when their baby died. "I feel guilty," she said, as she was in my arms. Now, the court has previously heard police interviews with Ms. Martin when she said that baby Victoria died when she fell asleep in a tent with the baby inside her jacket. Baby Victoria's body was found in a little bag in an allotment shed in Brighton this time last year. The couple said they went on the run in a bid to keep the baby as 4 previous children had been taken into care. The couple deny all the charges against them, including that of manslaughter by gross negligence.
Sejal Karia, thank you. 3 crew members have been killed in a Houthi missile attack on a cargo ship. Survivors were forced to abandon the vessel before being rescued. It is the first fatal attack since the Iranian-backed group began attacking Red Sea shipping. 5 months to the day since the war in Gaza began, British families have repeated their calls for hostages to be released. Hamas has been in ceasefire talks in Cairo, but it's reported the delegation left this morning with no breakthrough. And 2 Brighton fans are in hospital in Rome after being stabbed yesterday evening. According to Italian media, the fans in their late 20s suffered stab wounds to their thighs. It happened on the eve of Brighton's Europa League match against Roma. The woman in charge of weapons on a film set where a cinematographer was shot dead has been found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Helena Hutchins was killed when the star of Rust, Alec Baldwin, fired a gun loaded with live rounds. Prosecutors had claimed Hannah Gutierrez had brought the live rounds to the set from her home. She could face up to 18 months in prison. Our correspondent Robert Moore has the details.
Will the defendant please stand?
The armourer for the film, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the woman responsible for the safety of all guns on the movie set, waited impassively last night for the verdict.
We find the defendant, Hannah Gutierrez, guilty of involuntary manslaughter as charged in count 1.
The jury had agreed with the prosecution that there had indeed been a willful disregard for the safety of others during the production of the film Rust. The tragedy had occurred in October 2021 on the set in New Mexico, with Alec Baldwin, the actor, handling the gun in question. He was rehearsing without knowing that a live round had somehow been loaded into the chamber of his revolver. When it fired, it killed the cinematographer Helena Hutchins.
I'm the armor, or at least I was.
Gutierrez-Reed was charged, and now convicted, she faces up to 18 months in prison.
I think it was fair, yeah. And if someone died, I mean, you gotta take responsibility, especially when you're handling weapons and you're in charge of those. That's your job.
Are you doing okay? No, I'm not, actually.
Alec Baldwin faces a similar trial during the summer. He too has been charged with involuntary manslaughter, although he has long denied he pulled the trigger.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
Prosecutors have already argued that the rehearsals were a game of Russian roulette, with the armourer failing to track dummy rounds and live bullets, which should never have been allowed on the set in the first place. It cost the talented filmmaker Helena Hutchins her life and sent shockwaves through the movie industry, raising major questions about the safety culture on film sets. After the verdict, Gutierrez-Reed was led away last night, and in 4 months it will be Alec Baldwin in the dock. Robert Moore, ITV News in the United States.
Next this lunchtime, the thefts of dogs has increased across the UK, with most stolen from people's gardens. Police figures suggest at least 2,290 dogs were stolen last year. That's up 6% from 2022. Just 1 in 6 dogs were found and returned to their owners in 2023. That is the lowest level since records began in 2015. Well, one campaigner, Debbie Matthews from the Missing Pets Alliance, has set up a petition, the Bruce Forsyth's Vets Get Scanning petition, in her late father's name, and she's here to tell me why, with her dogs Chili and Pepper. Thank you very much for coming in. Now, you've been a victim of dog theft with 2 previous dogs. Tell us all about that.
Well, they were stolen from my car in 2006, and back then you never heard of dog theft at all. And it was only because of my father that I actually got them back. We were told by Dog Loss to keep very quiet, let them be sold on. They were 7 years old and neutered, so they probably wouldn't be used for breeding. And that's what we did. After a week, we went public, and the first we got Widget back the first day we did the appeal. He'd been sold in a livestock market in Southall. And the following day, we did another appeal, and Gizmo had been sold in Hayes Park. So I was very lucky, but it threw up things for me. The devastation that you go through with dog theft is unbelievable.
Of course. Look, you were lucky you had a Brucey bonus with that
Yes,
one, if you don't mind me saying,
absolutely.
but so many people don't get their dogs back. What are you calling for in this petition?
Well, the Vets Get Scanning petition is we're wanting vets to check microchip registration at first presentation. So if you walked in with chili into a vet's, if they don't check the registration, I don't get my dog back. And there's huge resilience by BVA and Royal College.
Hold on, so is that not happening automatically?
No. They'll write down the number of the microchip on their files, but they don't check that it's not an automatic. Some vets do, some don't, but we need it 100%.
You want all vets to do that?
And DEFRA are looking at it and looking at ways to improve the whole microchipping system.
OK, that's on the vet's side. What advice have you got for pet owners, especially when so many dogs are being stolen out of gardens?
Yes, check your home security, houses, gardens. Never leave your dog in a car or outside a shop. And when you're on a walk, keep your dog in view at all times.
You so often see dogs outside shops,
yes, though. Yeah. But we're really grateful to Direct Line for doing these figures, because it gives us another opportunity to warn people about the dangers, about if you're aware of where your dog can be taken from, then you can be safe.
Especially from your own home, and especially when so many more people have got dogs. Debbie Matthews, thank you very much for coming in to talk to us about this. And thank you to Chili and Pepper, who were absolutely delightful. Always work with children and animals. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
The woman who accused Red Bull's Christian Horner of inappropriate behaviour has been suspended on full pay by the team following its investigation. Horner was joined by his wife Jerry Halliwell at the Bahrain Grand Prix last weekend after allegations of inappropriate behaviour were dismissed by his employers. The 50-year-old, who has constantly denied the claims, is due to speak to reporters later today. A big drop in traditional TV advertising has seen profits plummet at ITV. The broadcaster said there had been a severe decline in companies spending money on commercials shown on TV rather than online. But the revenue loss was partly offset by a growth in ITVX and at ITV's production company, ITV Studios. Our correspondent Lucy Watson joins me now from ITV's headquarters. Lucy, what's been the reaction to today's results?
Well, overall, Nina, this report has not come as any great big surprise. We all know that fundamentally our viewing habits are changing and have changed. Now, if you're an older viewer, for example, you probably watch about 5 hours of traditional television a day. If you're between 16 and 24, that's around only half an hour. You stream it online, you watch it on your phone. And because so many people do this, they stream their content, they stream the programmes they want to watch online, it means it's harder and harder for commercial broadcasters to persuade and get advertisers to spend money on traditional television. And this is not just a problem for ITV, whose profits have slumped by 15%. I do apologise for that interruption into our broadcast just then. But this is also a problem for Channel 4 and Channel 5, and it is a huge challenge for them.
The broadcasters have to try and transition younger people to try and watch as much of their content that they produce on any screen, and it might not be a traditional television programme as we might think of it. It might be a 5-minute thing, it might be 3 minutes. So the broadcasters are expanding their base of how they actually reach those people, and the crucial bit is how to make sure you can monetise that properly.
So Lucy, what might those challenges mean for viewers?
Well, Nina, what broadcasters are effectively having to do is run two businesses, really. They still have to create good quality programmes on traditional way, but also create content that is appropriate for their streaming services, the likes of ITVX, which is doing really well, but it's not bridging that financial gap just yet. But traditional television still has great power, and we saw that very recently with the ITV drama Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. That had tremendous power to engage, but also move people to action. And with a programme like that, advertisers can hit around 3 million people with a big show of that nature. So traditional television is not going to vanish overnight, Nina, so I think we're okay, and we've still got a job for now.
Lucy Watson, thank you very much. Thank you. Nationwide Building Society has reached an agreement to buy Virgin Money in a £2.9 billion deal. If finalised, the Virgin Money brand would be phased out over 6 years. Once the proposed takeover is completed, the deal would create one of the UK's largest mortgage and saving groups. Finally, if you are single and started the day with a carb-heavy breakfast, you might want to think again if you are looking for romance. Bizarre new research from France shows people who eat processed foods such as white bread, sugary cereals and pastries first thing are less attractive. Apparently, junk food can make subtle changes to someone's face as soon as they eat them. We had to send Faye Barker out for brekkie to find out more.
If you're one to brood over your bacon or smoulder over a sausage, this debate may get you feeling fruity. French researchers from the University of Montpellier say that what we eat for breakfast can affect how we look. Out are refined or bad carbs like white bread, croissants and muffins. Instead, plating up a feast without any of that can make our faces more attractive, driven by changes in blood sugar and insulin. This couple from Montpellier, though, having their breakfast while on holiday here, were having none of it.
Really just about food and not really if it makes you attractive. I don't think it changes anything.
I love English breakfast, full English breakfast, but I don't know if it's better than a French breakfast.
Some have interpreted the research to mean a hearty English breakfast makes men especially look more attractive. But the same breakfast doesn't have the same impact for a woman. And an alternative like white toast with jam and sweet tea can apparently even make a woman seem unattractive. Oh well. This couple, together for 35 years, have also been chewing over the research. So John, you've just enjoyed a full English. Does that make you feel more attractive?
Yes, I think so. It's hard for me to get more attractive than I already am.
Do you think it makes him seem more attractive?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Good breakfast is good for anyone. It does good for your complexion and your gives you a good glow for the rest of the day.
I think we all just need a bit of what Lisa and John are having. Faye Barker, ITV News.
Just before I say goodbye, apologies for my slip of the tongue earlier when I was speaking to Harry Horton. From me and everyone on the Lunchtime team, bye-bye.
Everywhere.